Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, boys and girls. Happy Friday. Today is March 19th, and as you can see on the board behind me, today we are going to be writing about Chapter 5 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So let's scroll down and let's get started right away. As I scroll down and I look at the do now, first thing that you guys need to do is write down your homework and your classwork. You can see today we are going to be working on the Chapter 5 quiz, which you guys can find on Google Classroom. And we will also be writing a summary of Chapter 5, and we will also be working on this in Google Classroom. This is your first chapter summary that's actually going to be counting as a quiz grade. So for the first time, you guys are not going to write your summary in your notebook. You're going to write it on Google Classroom, and you're also going to have to try this one out independently. So before we get started, of course, I will give you some tips and some things to remember as you write your summaries, and we're going to also look at that quiz. So let's jump in. As I scroll down today, now you can see that I do have set aside here. We have page 51 in our notebooks, which is Chapter 5 notes. So there will not be a page 52 going into our notebook for our chapter summaries. If you want to write your summary for Chapter 5 in your notebook first as practice and then type it into Google Classroom, that is a great idea. This way it'll allow you an opportunity to jot your thoughts and your ideas down, kind of do a rough draft. So it's not in our table of contents, although I do have it in my notebook on page 52, and I would recommend to each of you that is a good place for you guys to write a rough draft of your summary. You don't have to do that, okay? You do have to write one, though, in Google Classroom. All right, so here we are. First activity today is our Chapter 5 written response quiz. All right, as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, let's cover the directions. You have to read each question and answer in complete sentences, all right? Each answer has to be a complete sentence. If it's not written in a complete sentence, some of you might have noticed I have been writing on your quizzes redo and resubmit. All right, if it's not written down, you guys can't get credit. The only thing I can give credit to you guys for is answers that are written in complete sentences. You don't get any credit for just jotting down an answer. All right, if the question is, how do Ron and Harry get to Hogwarts? And your answer is a flying car, okay, that answer will not be scored. You must write your answer as a complete sentence, okay? And that's what it says here. They have to be fully developed complete sentences, which include using proper nouns, words from the question, and specific details. Your teachers and I have guided you through, we've held your hand through these first 4 quizzes, all right? And we're going to continue to support you, but you must follow the directions. If you do not answer in a complete sentence, you will not be able to earn full credit. 6th grade standards require you guys to write in fully developed complete sentences, and that is the expectation for all quizzes. All right, so right now, let's go over to Google Classroom and let's look at your quiz. Okay, so here I am on our Google Classroom. You guys know that on the stream, you guys, of course, can still find all of our assignments. I am pre-recording this, so you guys can see I'm recording this actually on March 10th. This is the March 9th post on the stream, and so you guys can see if you're on the Google Classroom, you'll always have the link to the blog so you can see the lesson, and you'll also always have the video lesson right here. So the video lesson is on Google Classroom as well as it is going to be on the stream. Now you guys don't see it here on the stream because I'm recording the video right now for this, but you guys know that every day the video is up there before you guys even have to do the lesson. And I do expect that you guys are watching the videos. Again, if you do not, when you guys hand in your quizzes and it's clear that you're not reading the directions, you're not watching the videos and following along with the directions, you will see I'm writing redo and resubmit, okay? Because I will not grade work that does not follow the directions, okay? I'm taking the time to tell you guys the directions. Each quiz has about 3 or 4 responses. So let's say each quiz has 4 responses and there's 76 grade students. You as a student need to write 4 answers. Me as a teacher need to read all 4 of your answers and all 4 of the answers for all other students, which is about 70 students. So 75 times 70 times 4 is 280. If I'm going to take the time to read 280 answers, you need to take the time to write your 4 answers correctly according to the directions. I will not accept anything less than that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go to the Classworks tab. And underneath the Classworks tab right here, I will scroll and we see right here we have Chapter 5 notes. And then here we have our Chapter 5 quiz, The Whomping Willow. So I'm going to click here on my quiz and I'm going to open up my quiz. All right, first, ladies and gentlemen, let's zoom in. All right, please, first, make sure that you are taking the time to write your name on your test, your first name and your last name using capitals. All right, right here, I can see I already have a typo in the first question that I will go back and I will fix before you guys even take this quiz. But question number 1 says, why didn't Harry and Ron take the train to Hogwarts? This is worth 3 points. Okay, there are only 4 questions on this quiz. All right, make sure that you answer them in complete sentences. So the first thing that we need to do is ask ourselves, how would we begin our answer to this question? Okay, and we would use the words right here from the question. We would just drop off the why didn't, and we would begin with Harry. Harry and Ron do not take the train to Hogwarts because, and again, you see, it took me a second. I started to misspeak there. All right, I can't just blindly grab the words from the question. I have to truly think about it. Okay, we're dropping this word didn't here, but I need to reinsert it. So it's Harry and Ron did not take the train to Hogwarts because. And that's how I would start that. Okay, so here, okay, let's click and we begin with a capital. Harry and Ron did not take the train to Hogwarts because. All right, now I can see I got a little typo there, so we always want to make sure that we spell correctly. Fix your typo. All right, and so here, ladies and gentlemen, what you need to make sure that you are doing before you answer any quiz questions, you need to make sure that you're going to your notes. I have my notes right here, so I'm going to look in here, and I'm going to look to see that Harry and Ron couldn't get through the barrier to platform 9 3/4. I actually have the answer right there in my notes, so I would be able to go right over here. Okay, if you take good notes, most of the answers to your quizzes will be in your notes. Okay, the other things that are not in your notes, they should be in your book. So I'm at home filming, so I've got my copy of my hardcover book right here. I always have the copy of my book whenever I go to sit down and take the quiz. Right? Because this is Chapter 5, and I'm not going to type my answer out here for you. I've already started the answer. All you guys need to do now is finish it appropriately. We've already begun it. Make sure that you fully develop your answer, and you want to include as many details as you can. All right, that'll be a tip for you. Include as many details as you can. Make sure you also end with your punctuation. All right. Let's go on. Question number 2. Question number 2 asks us, what happened to the car when it finally reached Hogwarts? All right, so let's take a minute. Let's think about this. It's asking us about something. What happened? Okay, so we have to describe an event. What happened to the car when it finally reached Hogwarts? All right, so this is how I would start my answer. Okay, I would start my answer when the car finally reached Hogwarts, and then I would describe what happened to it. All right, And so here, again, I would go into my notes. That would be the very first thing that I do. I would jump into my notes, and I would look to see, do I have the answer in my notes? Hopefully I do. All right, and I do have it here. The car started to shudder. The car crashed into the tree. The tree began to hit the car. And then later on, the car goes off, and it heads off into the forest. So there's a lot of details. This is an answer where you're going to need to include all of those details. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to point out here, this is a kind of question where I know that some of you will start your answer like this. It crashes into the Whomping Willow. Okay. Now, I got several issues with that one. Of course, it's not fully developed. I'm not taking any of the words out of the question. I don't know what it is. When you do an answer like this, it crashes into the Whomping Willow, I don't know what it is. What is it? Well, it is what happened to the car when it finally reached to Hogwarts. And I need to include those words. When the car finally reaches Hogwarts, it. And then you guys could finish your answer. And I would include a lot more details than just this. Now, again, there's another little issue that some of you might be overlooking in my answer the way I wrote it. Whomping Willow is a proper noun. So those, ladies and gentlemen, need capitals. I need to come back in here and I need to capitalize Whomping Willow because that is a proper noun. All right, so right now, ladies and gentlemen, take a moment and answer question number 2. Again, feel free to pause me in between your responses if you want to. If it's better, you guys can watch the whole video and then go back and answer the questions afterwards. But I would pause the video now. I would answer question number 2. When you're done answering question number 2, then I would go on to number 3. Question number 3 reads like this. What was the punishment for Harry and Ron? Okay, we know that when Harry and Ron get to Hogwarts, they get caught by Snape, and of course they did not get to Hogwarts on the train. They crash the car into the Whomping Willow, and they get into trouble. So the question is, what's their punishment? We could begin with the punishment for Harry and Ron is. We could begin like that. Okay. Another way that you could begin this sentence, or this answer, if you wanted, is like this. Harry and Ron's punishment. And again, here's where I could even bring in more words. I could fully develop my answer. Harry and Ron's punishment for crashing the car into the Whomping Willow is, all right, and I could do that. All right, so there are multiple ways that you guys could start your answers to these questions. I just showed you 2 ways that you could start. Either way will work. I kind of like the way that this sounds better. Harry and Ron's punishment for crashing the car into the Whomping Willow is, and then I would finish my answer. And again, where do I go for my answer? I go right back into the notes, all right? And again, you guys, if you're taking good notes, you should be able to catch these things as we're reading them. Because these are important details. And in your notes, you should be writing important details. Okay, your quiz questions, I write your quiz questions. And again, I'm trying to make sure that I'm asking questions about the most important details. Okay, so if you're taking good notes, most of the answers to these questions should be in your notes. All right, I'm going to remove that sentence starter and I'm going to go on to question number 4, the last question. And question 4 is this. What happened to Harry and Ron when they returned to the Gryffindor common room? And again, here we're looking for an event. We're asking what happened. So we're looking for an event. Something happened when Harry and Ron got back to the Gryffindor common room. And so I'm going to begin my sentence by taking those words right out of the question, all right, and putting them in my answer. So I'm going to begin with when Harry and Ron returned to the Gryffindor common room. Okay, I'm not just going to say when they returned. Okay, and I'm not just going to say when Harry and Ron returned. I'm going to take it all out. When Harry and Ron returned to the Gryffindor common room, and then I'm going to describe what happened to them. So I would begin like this. Capital W, when Harry and Ron returned to the Gryffindor is a proper noun. You need a capital. Gryffindor. And I know Gryffindor can be a tough word to spell, but it's a word that's in our book. It's an important word. Make sure you spell it correctly. The Gryffindor common room. And it needs a capital because it's a proper noun. All right. And I have a little typo here, so always make sure that you go back and fix your typos. All right. I like to type quickly, so occasionally I make typos, but I always need to go back and fix them. So my sentence starter is this. When Harry and Ron returned to the Gryffindor common room, and then I would describe what happened. Okay? And of course, where would I look? I would look in my notes first, and if I can't find the answer in my notes, I will go right back into the book. And these questions go right in order. So the first question would be the first thing that happened in the chapter, and so on. So this is the last question on your quiz. I wouldn't look in the beginning of the chapter. I wouldn't look in the middle. I'd look towards the end to try to find this information. Okay, now, couple last things before I move on to the next activity, and that is whenever you are done writing any answer, make sure that you proofread your answer. And when I say proofread, that means you reread your answer and you check to make sure that 1, it's fully developed, 2, it's a complete sentence, 3, it has capitals, 4, it has punctuation, all right, and last, 5, is that your sentence structure is appropriate. You don't want to write sentence fragments, and that's like just a part of a sentence. So it's when you do not write a complete sentence. And you also don't want to write a run-on sentence. Okay, what a lot of students will do is they'll write just one really long answer, and they'll just connect it all together with a bunch of ands. Okay, so if, let's say we go back to the first question here, the second question, what happened to the car when it finally reached Hogwarts? Okay, many students would do, when the car finally reached Hogwarts, it began to sputter and it crashed into the Whomping Willow, and the tree began to hit it, and it fell to the ground. And then sometimes we'll do this, ground, and then the car kicked Harry and Ron out, and then drove into the forest. Okay, you see right here, I call this stringing ands together, and that's what's happening. Now, the answer is technically correct. This is all the stuff that happened to the car, but this is a 3-point answer, and if I was to grade this, I'd probably give this person 2 points. All right? First of all, I did use all proper capitals and punctuation, so there's a point. I have all of the details correct, so that's a second point. But I would lose that third point because my sentence structure is all off. I've written a terribly run-on sentence, okay? A terrible run-on sentence. When the car finally reached Hogwarts, it began to sputter, and it crashed into the Whomping Willow, and the tree began to hit, and it fell to the ground, and then the car kicked Harry and Ron out, and then drove into the forest. And what you guys are doing is you're typing the way that you speak, all right? But what we need to do is we need to stop, and we need to break this sentence up into multiple sentences. So you might say, when the car finally reached Hogwarts, it began to sputter, and it crashed into the Whomping Willow. And it's after Willow where I'd say, okay, you got 2, okay, you got to put a period in. You can't just keep putting and. All right, once you get 1 or 2, you got to stop. You got to start a new sentence. All right, And so here, I would just ditch this and. And I would say something like, the tree then began to hit the car and it fell to the ground. Again, once again, here, I would come back in, put a period, okay? Break it up, have a new sentence, okay? Now I might start this sentence with then. So each sentence is starting differently. When, the tree, then. And so I'm taking this one long run-on sentence, and now I've broken it up into 3 sentences. All right. I'd also probably still try to ditch some of those ands and rewrite that and using some different kinds of transition words. All right. But this is what I mean when I talk about stringing ands together and there's being a run-on sentence. Sometimes people do this. Okay. Then drove into the forest. Okay. This part here, this would be called a sentence fragment, meaning it's not a complete sentence. There's no subject in the sentence. Then drove into the forest. We would need to insert a subject. The car then drove into the forest. Basically, every sentence always needs a noun or a subject, and it needs a verb. In order to be a sentence, you need to have a noun and a verb, okay, or a subject and some kind of action. Okay, the shortest sentence in the English language is two words. Okay, something like I run. That's a sentence. I run, because you have a subject, so you know who is doing the activity, and you have a verb. Okay, I run. I am the subject, and run is the verb. That's the action. Okay, or I could say Roy jumps. Again, the subject is Roy. The action is jumps. All right, every sentence needs a subject and an action. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've given you a lot of information about how to answer these questions now. Okay. So take this time, pause the video here, make sure that you answer all of your questions in fully developed complete sentences. When you are done, you guys resume the video and we'll go over and we'll look at the summary. While you guys are working, I'm going to fix my typo in the first question. And there we go. Harry needs a capital. Had to fix it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. When you're done with the quiz, it is time for you to write your summary. So the summary now is right above it, just like it always is. It's still there, but now this time, instead of doing the work in your ELA notebook, you are going to be doing the work here on Google Classroom. So it says this. Here are the directions. I'll blow them up big so you guys can see them. For the first 4 chapters, we have been working in small groups to practice writing summaries. Today, you will work independently to write your own summary of Chapter 5. You should use your notes as you write your summary. Your summaries should include, and right here I give you guys these directions, and these are the same that are on the blog. The main idea, and think mood or big idea. The most important details from the chapter, and a reflection, which is your own thoughts about the events of the chapter. Before I click on the quiz and show it to you, you guys can find more tips right here under Activity 2. Normally, this would be called the 60-second summary challenge. All right, but you can see right here in the directions, I tell you the same thing. Instead of working in groups like usual, today you will need to write your summary independently on Google Classroom. This will count as a quiz grade. And if you scroll down, okay, once again, here's exactly what your summaries need. Okay, you must have those things in your summary. And also, here are some things that you guys can ask yourselves. These are questions that teachers ask. I know I ask them when I am helping students write their summaries, but good writers ask themselves questions. So as you're writing, these are questions that you should ask yourself when you're done before you submit your work. What does your summary need to start with? Okay? We know it needs to start with the main idea. Have you written your main idea? So before you submit it, you need to check yourself. Have I written a main idea? What did you write for your main idea? All right? Literally, look in. What did I write? Did I write a main idea? What was the big idea of the chapter? Okay? Or am I writing about the mood? And if you think about this chapter, chapter 5, what's happening from the beginning to the end of the chapter? What's the big idea? Well, simply, Harry and Ron travel to Hogwarts. This entire chapter is about Harry and Ron going to Hogwarts. Harry and Ron going to school. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that I would put in my main idea. In chapter 5, Harry and Ron fly the car to school. Fly the car to Hogwarts. All right, I'm not going to get into the details, but that's the kind of thing that you would put it in your main idea. And then I would include the details about that journey. Okay, if I asked you what you did over the weekend or what you did over your summer vacation, you might say, my family and I, we traveled to Florida. Or my family and I went camping. All right, and then you'd give me all the details of that trip. Well, that's what's happening here in this chapter. Okay, the boys are going to school, and that would be something I would include in my main idea. So if you've watched the video and you're paying attention, right there, I'm giving you a good way to start your summary. Also, good writers will ask themselves, what details am I going to include? Where would I find those? I'd find them right in my notes. You could even go through and start starring some of these things and say, yep, I would include this. I want to include this. I think I should include this. All right, include the important details. And again, asking yourselves, why are those details important? If you can't really answer why those details are important, maybe those are not important details and you want to leave them out. Okay, have you used any transitional words to connect your thoughts and ideas together, like and, but, so? And also using your notebook, we have that resource in Unit 1 for our transitional words and phrases. Are there any places where you could use some transitional words? Okay, also making sure you stop and ask yourself, what are my thoughts about the events of this chapter? Basically thinking about what is my reflection. And then, what do you think about what you read? Which is, again, similar to right here. What are your thoughts on what the chapter is? Okay? And then, if you really want to get deep, you could ask yourself, how did these events show that Harry is a literary hero? Okay? Remember, our character, Harry, he is on this thing called the hero's journey. And so you can start incorporating some of that vocabulary, some thoughts and ideas about here. Unfortunately, we haven't spent that much time talking about it because we spent so much time reading. But here is something where you guys can push your writing even further if you start bringing in this literary hero vocabulary. And then the last thing, make sure you check for your capitals, periods, grammar, and sentence structure. Okay? The last tips that I would give you before I have you guys start is you are going to be expected to follow the rules of writing. And that means that we indent the first sentence. It means that all other lines are lined up right along the left-hand side. And the great thing about the computer is it does it for you automatically. All right, words would go on the line for us when we write it in our notebook. Here, again, the computer takes care of that for you. All right, you guys always write right to the end of the line. You don't have to hit the return or the enter key. Your keyboard will automatically go down to the next line. Spaces go in between your words. Make sure you have proper capitals and punctuation. And spelling matters. You should not be spelling words from the book incorrectly, especially characters' names. All right, so with all of those tips in mind, back on Google Classroom, ladies and gentlemen, I would click on this form. It is a quiz form, and you will see there is one question, and I've already read it to you. For the first 4 chapters, we have been working in small groups to practice writing summaries. Today, you will work independently to write your own summary of Chapter 5. You should use your notes as you write your summary. Your summaries should include the main idea, the most important details from the chapter, and a reflection. This is where you will write your summary, and you are writing a paragraph. Make sure that you proofread your paragraph. Make sure you follow all of those tips that are on the blog. Make sure you think about your first 4 chapters that you've written. Remember, those are practice. Okay? So now it's time to put those skills that you've been working on to really show the teachers what you can do independently. All right, so with that said, ladies and gentlemen, when you're done with your summary, proofread it, and make sure that you hit submit. Alright, that is all I have for you today. You guys are going to be able to enjoy your weekend. I have no additional homework for you guys. And then next week I'm excited because we will move on and we will be reading chapter 6 on Monday. And I look forward to doing that with you. So in the meantime, guys, have a great weekend. Stay safe and have a good one. Bye-bye.